Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. Welcome to the TAFO, the Truck Around and Find Out podcast, where we discuss some fun and hot topics surrounding the trucking industry, safety, community, and kind of our lives here in northern Colorado. We are your hosts. I'm Keith Couch with Rush Truck Centers and Rocky Mountain Peterbilts on YouTube, and we also have Ryan Byers of Front Range Compliance and DOT University. How are you, Ryan?
Good, Keith. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good. Sounds like you had a good weekend, and all is good in the neighborhood. So, did you do anything fun over the weekend?
Not a whole lot. There's some good football on.
There was some great football this weekend. Hey, go Broncos! But as much as I want to say go Broncos, I kind of feel like we probably watched the last game they're going to win. With Bo getting that injury right at the end of that game, what a devastating blow that's going to be.
Yeah, I kept looking for the Vikings on TV this weekend, but I couldn't find them.
No, they didn't make an appearance this year, unfortunately. I was rooting for them. This year I was kind of hoping for your sake that we'd see some movement there. But hey, someday.
Well, I didn't think the Broncos could get past Josh Allen and the Bills, but they did.
Either.
They did.
I'm going clear back to preseason. I watched their preseason games, and I was like, we're going to have a pretty good season. Game one, they played it. They won it. It was ugly, but they won it. And I remember walking away from that going, they got some work to do. Game 2 and 3, when they lost both of those back-to-back, I was like, yeah, we got a terrible team. They are just not in sync. And they turned their season around. Yeah. But it was, I would say, improvement in each game, but definitely just did not look like it was clicking. But there was some mile-high magic happening because they somehow pulled it together. That game, we were at the stock show this weekend, so we were kind of watching. I started watching that game before we left to go to the stock show. We got there. We were walking around the National Western Complex, and there were people with TVs set up, and I had the game playing through my Sirius app, and I was listening to it. And so every time we come to a TV, if they were getting to a point where something was happening, and we pause and we watch it just a little bit. And it was very, very entertaining. None of the TVs, and plus my headphones, everything was on a different delay. Mm-hmm. So you could hear somewhere in the complex there'd just be a great big roar and applause, and so we'd be like, okay, something's happening. We're sitting there watching it, just waiting for it to hit us. But what an exciting game. That overtime was just, and that wasn't the only football game. I mean, the
Bears-Rams game was something.
Oh, it was definitely, I did see that the Seahawks kind of ran away with the victory and big.
I tell you what, Sam Darnold, who the Vikings got rid of, sent him to Seattle, and now look what he's doing. I mean, quite honestly, I'm not a Seattle Seahawks fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got a lot of respect and love for Sam Darnold, and I tell you what, I would like to see him win it.
Yeah,
and Seattle, I don't really want them to win it, but I don't think anybody's going to touch them.
Well, I'm still a little sore for that game 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that one.
If you look on my shelf over here, I've got the autographed Peyton Manning football. I ordered it before that Super Bowl game, and it was that was the season of records that got broken by Peyton and by the Denver Broncos. I mean, the football is just lined with the records that they broke. And then the Super Bowl, it says, hey, it's all this great stuff. And then there's that Super Bowl score where they just ran away with it.
That was the first snap of the bowl.
I think so.
First snap went, was it on the ground or over his head or something?
Something happened. But that whole game just went south. And we got one touchdown, and I don't know, I could walk over there and see what that final score was. It was a runaway score. So I'm still a little sore. And so I call them the Birds. The two teams that I call the Birds are, the Seahawks and the Eagles. So I usually root against them every chance I get. But, but we'll see. I mean, if you look at the way everybody played, I'm kind of thinking that they're kind of going to be in there for that contention. I
tell you what, I think the Vikings, who's my team, obviously, has been for 58 years, we always say there's always next year.
There's always
Once again, there's always next year. But I bet the front office is kind of kicking themselves that they got rid of Darnold.
Yeah, probably. Did you watch the national champion last night?
Yes, I did. That was a fantastic
game.
That
was a great game. Boy, they were back and forth. Miami they really they really turned it up and started
They
coming
did.
after them there in that third period. And
Boy, I tell you what, Miami was throwing everything they could at Indiana, and Indiana got the plays when they needed them. And then that blocked punt. I mean, they just forgot about the guy.
Yeah.
And he just got one hand on that ball, shot it right into the end zone, and covered
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you look at it, that's the difference in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
27-21. That touchdown is the difference in winning or losing that game.
For sure. Yeah, it was a great game.
Who ended up winning that one?
Indiana.
Indiana, yeah. Yeah.
16-0, and they have the Heisman Trophy winner. And boy, what an effort to get into the end zone. That Mendoza,
Yeah.
when they called that quarterback draw on 4th and 4, and he ran 12 yards into the end zone. I mean, you need to go back and find that.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable effort.
Yeah.
I
And
watched the first half of it, and it was a very defensive game. I was kind of hoping Miami U would pull it in at the end there, but
they came out of halftime, and I think that first touchdown that Miami scored right after right in the third, when that he running back, I don't know the names, but man, he pulled through there and he turned the gas on, man, and he literally ran
He's
away.
6'2", 235, and can run like a deer.
Oh, he had, I think half the team was behind him, and he was putting distance between them. There was no catching him. He said, "I'm going to the end zone," and that was
I think he had 2 touchdowns.
it was
But
a great
what a
game.
great game.
Great football weekend.
I just hate Miami from the Orange Bowl days in the 80s when Nebraska always seemed to have to play Miami, and they always seem to beat us. But
Yeah, that's for sure. That is for sure.
so I'm glad Indiana won it. They've never won it before.
Yeah,
But
this is their first time making it, wasn't it?
Yeah, very first time, first national championship. And I look at 20 years ago, I said, who'd have thought Indiana's 16-0 and won the national football championship, and Nebraska men's basketball is 18-0 and ranked, I think, 5th or 4th in the nation.
yeah.
It's like, I didn't know he had a basketball team.
Yeah, Nebraska, that'd be a fun one to see start to rebuild and come back,
Yeah, I was hoping that we'd be a little farther along by now. But
Yeah, I grew up a Buffs fan, so that was, back in there.
so
when
talk
they were
slow
big
for
winning.
Ryan.
Okay. I don't really follow them too much anymore, but that was when I was in high school. That was like the big thing. Go to the CU Buffs summer football camps, and get to know the players, and get to go out and play on Folsom Field. And that was when they had Eric Bieniemy was their fullback, and they were winning back then. And then that just kind of petered off, and I think they thought with their recent changes in the last few years, they were going to all of a sudden magically appear at the top. But
Well, he made a big splash and has brought a lot of revenue.
he has.
He's a magical marketer. I'm not sure he's a head coach.
Yeah.
I really questioned a lot of the games that I watched.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's going on? Because like Travis Hunter's an amazing athlete, but you can't play every game both ways and have any gas left in the tank in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. And not end up with some injuries,
So it's just, I didn't understand a lot of that.
Well, I mean, that's how some people make a name. They get known for that. And once he goes pro, he's definitely not going to be continuing on that trend. But I can tell you this: the one thing that I have noticed, if I watch a CU Buffs game, I just find this need that I just want to go buy some sunglasses. Not to go buy a football, not go play football, but let me tell you, they talk about the marketing.
I think CSU, they fired their head coach, Jay Norvell, and now they got Jim Mora Jr. He comes from quite a pedigree. Hopefully he can do something.
Yeah. It would be just super exciting to see these teams in the Western, or even, we said the Midwest, West, it'd be super nice to see someone in the heart of the United States start making some appearances at this stuff. And I know Indiana is, dead, obviously, in the heart of the United States.
Yeah.
But let's go a little further west. Let's get some Nebraska and some Buffs back up there. That'd be kind of fun and exciting.
Yes, it would. And it'd be good to see Wyoming good, CSU, CU, Air Force, all the front range schools here.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that. Well, Montana State.
Oh, heck
They
yeah.
won the FCS championship.
Oh, and my household, this is a big deal.
Yes, it
because
is.
Holly and her kids, they are from Missoula, so they are Grizz fans. And my son-in-law, Mike, he is from around Billings, so he is a Cats fan, and Montana is always for Montana, no matter what.
Right.
But when those two meet, I mean, they're like mortal enemies. Like Cats and Grizz people, they actually hate each other.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, they're always pro Montana, so everybody was happy to see the Cats, but move forward and win that. But pretty exciting stuff. I got to say, some great football this year.
There has been some good football this year.
Perfect. Well, Keith, with that being said, let's kind of talk about some regulatory stuff. We have a regulatory alert, some big news coming up for the hazardous material transportation industry. This is going to be specific to the transportation of petroleum products, petroleum distillate fuels. The FMCSA, not FMCSA, the PHMSA, the pipeline. Let me make sure I get it right. It's the U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, PHMSA. I say PHMSA, PHMSA all the time, so had to make sure I got it right for y'all. They did issue a final rule to reinstate some key placarding exceptions for cargo tanks when transporting petroleum distillate fuels. So this whole thing was brought forth to kind of provide some ease of cost and regulations to the transportation industry. And basically what this rule, it's going to be effective, first off, upon publication of the Federal Register. So if you're hearing this, don't just go out and change stuff up with your placarding and your marking requirements. Wait for that Federal Register. I am watching for it to see when that officially comes out. If you're listening and you're like, oh, it's been issued, right, and you haven't got it yet, please email it to me, because I have searched and I have not actually found it yet. So I've just been waiting for the notice to come out from PHMSA. But anyways, so that rule will go live once it comes up. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to allow the energy marketers, so all the transportation companies, to display the identification number of the fuel with the lowest flash port transported during the current or previous business day. This is going to help in streamlining and reducing the unnecessary compliance burdens. The placarding exception also applies to the compartmental cargo tanks, containing more than one petroleum distillate fuel. So that's going to be, pretty important. Previously in 2015, PHMSA interpretation limited the placarding option, forcing all the companies to install the flip placards or the interchangeable systems to adjust for load sequencing and increase insufficiencies, cost, safeties by drivers. So by reinstating the lowest flash point exception for split loads or alternating straight loads, including gasoline, diesel, heating oil, ethanol blends up to E10, not E12, but E10, the rule acknowledges the marketing realities and aligns with the emergency responders' best practices, especially because all of the emergency response information is the exact same guidance out of the ERG regarding the petroleum distillate fuels. So this is going to, I think, streamline stuff, make it a little bit easier. I'm definitely looking forward to reading through that whole Federal Register once it comes out, so we can get the 100% specifics. But be aware of that. If you are a petroleum hauler, this is going to be beneficial to you. Should make it a lot easier by displaying, your identification numbers for that last known.
So is this PHMSA, PHMSA? Is that part of the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety?
That is like that. Yeah, that is like the FMCSA, but for hazmat. So, you got the federal motor carrier.
So is it part of it, or is it a separate association?
It's a separate association. Different federal government, still under the Department of Transportation. So the FMCSA, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety, those guys are for all just general transportation, public, for hire, passengers, property. PHMSA is still trucking. So if you haul hazmat, you got to go by the FMCSA rules, but then you also have to follow the PHMSA rules.
Okay.
So, and also PHMSA regulates all your pipeline stuff. So, they did, and Luke brought this to our attention, PHMSA did have a world record fine in the last couple of weeks that oil company that had a little mishap down in the Gulf of America. They had a pipeline and released something like 1.2 million gallons of crude into the ocean, and a bunch of fail safes. I tried to read it. It's like 20 pages long. I think I made it 3 pages in, and I looked to the side and saw that it went on forever. And I was like, okay, I get the gist. I'm not reading this whole thing, but it was almost a $9.5 million fine, something like that. PHMSA issued.
$1 million fine.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
So when they fine, let's say they fine a company like that, where does that money go?
Good question. To Tim Walls.
To a new Learing Center?
New Learing Center. All right.
I just had to ask because I've had my CDL forever, and I've got doubles, triples. I've got everything but hazmat.
Yeah.
Because I never needed it. I didn't want to have to renew it every 2 years and all that. So I'm a little bit ignorant on hauling fuel as an example. So
well, yeah,
just curious.
It's funny. I've got my DOT book and I got my hazmat book, and they're both big, but the hazmat book is bigger. And
wow.
and smaller text. They print it smaller to make it a smaller package. So every time I open that hazmat book, I absolutely have to have my readers present because it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
and it's a whole thing. So
I'm just a little bit ignorant on that. I sell a lot of trucks to fuel haulers.
Yeah.
But once they take them, I'm not exactly sure everything that goes on.
A lot. There's a lot. We could come up with a lot of truck around and find out topics for hazmat, so I'm sure we will as we go forward. Yeah,
that's all I know.
No smoking around your explosives or your flammables, things like that. So Keith, I was reminded, had a little situation happen yesterday. I was kind of, as I was driving down to Denver on I-25, I was kind of reminded that it's that time of year we need to talk a little bit about some safe driving tips, some habits. I'll get into my story for our TAFO of the day here once we finish this little topic up. But the one thing that I've noticed through the years, this goes clear back to when I was a trooper, and even now, it seems like here in Colorado, we don't see that snow each and every day. When we see it, it'll show up, it'll disappear just as fast as it is. Mm-hmm. And this winter, the snow has just been absent, right? We just haven't seen it. I think we've seen 2 snows, where we've got some actual coverage. Well, we got one night before last, and I woke up and, it was so warm before that layer of wet just kind of melted and formed a real nice little sheet of ice.
Yes, it did.
And then they had a nice little snow cover just to kind of lubricate that a little bit, and make it slippery. So I went out and shoveled my driveway, and I was reminded that, wearing my tennis shoes, I was slipping and sliding. It wasn't enough to fire up the snowblower, but I just went out and kind of, got it off there real quick.
I did the same.
And I headed down to Denver, and I'm just reminded, I-25 is bad driving on. It doesn't matter where you're at. I mean, it's got to be ranked in the top 5 of the most dangerous highways in the United States.
I-25 drag strip.
It's absolutely crazy. Just the recklessness, the aggressive drivers, everything out there. But I just kind of am reminded again that, when people don't drive in the snow every day, that they have temporary brain farts and they just forget, like, oh, hey, everything is normal. And, we can go snow and then wait a month and go to snow, and it's like, everybody's still tailgating, everybody's still falling too closely, and everybody's still driving too fast. So I found, I was doing a little research yesterday. This is kind of for all vehicles. It does not just pertain to commercial motor vehicle drivers, but hey, you know what? We got to share the road with those folks out there, and I'm praying that many of those folks are listening to us on this podcast. So with that being said, I found the top 10 safe driving tips for 2026, a New Year's resolution for safer driving and a commitment to safety on the road. And that's what we're all about here at Front Range Compliance. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of got this out there. So you want to start us off?
Buckle up every time.
Buckle up every time.
Trip.
If you don't wear your seatbelts, you know what, Keith? I grew up in an era where the seatbelt was
optional.
My dad holding his arm out and pinning me back, and I think I remember being in the back seat, standing up, running around, jumping up and down until I got told to sit down, that kind of thing. But yeah, buckle up every time. When I was in high school, I got into a crash, wasn't wearing my seatbelt. My passenger wasn't wearing his seatbelt. He got ejected out of the vehicle. We hit a guardrail at about 75 mile an hour, and that makes for a bad day. And my passenger was ejected, thrown about 25 feet from the vehicle. Lived, thank goodness he lived. But I walked away from that crash and jumped in. Next time I drove, I still wasn't wearing my seatbelt.
Well, we didn't do that.
Yeah, we didn't. I became a sheriff or a police officer, and there's a state law that says police officers don't have to wear their safety belts. They're exempt from it. So I was a police officer, and then I was a patrol sheriff deputy out in Delta County, and I never wore my seatbelt. And I showed up when I got hired by the state patrol. I showed up at the state patrol, and the first driving class we had, went up to the track, and I climbed in that seat, and the instructor's sitting next to me, and he said, "You need to buckle up." I said, we're exempt. I don't have to wear my seatbelt. And he says, "If you're going to work for the Colorado State Patrol, you're going to wear your seatbelt. If you don't wear your seatbelt," he said, "you're not going to have a job." And so I put my seatbelt on, and he proceeded to show me how you could really drive that car, and why you needed to have a seatbelt. And he made me a believer. So yeah, definitely, mine was just being stubborn, but definitely want to see you buckle up. And then make sure your children are in the right seat. So two things. The one thing I think when it comes to kids is, first off, the car seat rules. That's super, super important. I think overall people are pretty good about that these days.
Yeah, I think so.
But, you see a lot of people that are putting them, first off, on the sides because it's easiest access. Their safest place is in the middle. Now, if you have more than one kid, that's not the best thing. But when or your option. But make sure that when you're putting your kids in the car, make sure you're installing that car seat right. It needs to be locked and wedged in. Redbeard, what are you giggling at me for?
Put your favorite in the middle.
Put your favorite in the middle. Jeez. Okay. All right.
And driving sober, that kind of goes without saying. We just had a fatality here of an infant, talking about kids in the seat.
Yeah.
But I think the kid was in a correct seat, and maybe even in the middle. We had that guy with that rental truck up there at I-25 and Crossroads.
Yeah.
And he caused an accident and killed a 13 or 14-month-old, something like that.
Right in front of their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, they were in a car. But, that was the day I got stuck in traffic. I was heading home just shortly after that crash happened. I got stuck on I-25. That guy was drunk. And, sat there for, I don't know, 2+ hours. Yeah, he was drunk. It happened right in front of the parents. Somebody tried to release some devastating video of the family just having a meltdown on the roadway, and thank goodness they took it down, because that should not be shared.
Terrible.
I wish people had a little more class when it came to their stupid video cameras that they carry each day, but just brutal.
So don't
just
do
brutal.
It. Don't do it. Don't.
I don't remember the specific stats, but back in my trooper days, I was a DUI officer. And I think the one thing that really struck me when I heard that was the typical person who drives while drinking. They say that they do that hundreds of times, and I don't remember the exact number, but it's mind blowing. They typically will drive intoxicated hundreds of times before they finally get caught.
Wow.
So, there is a lot of danger. And the second statistic I remember them talking about was they said that the drunk drivers were so prevalent out there on like Friday or Saturday nights, or like on nights that it's like 1 in 5. Like 1 in 5 vehicles, drivers, is an intoxicated driver, or somebody who's consumed too much. And that's when I made up my mind. I was like, well, hell, if it's just 1 in 5, I should be able to get some DUIs. I just got to make high volume traffic stops. And that was what I found out, that you go out there and make a whole bunch of traffic stops. Don't worry about spending time writing tickets, give some warnings and stuff like that. And I would sometimes make 40 traffic stops a night, but sometimes on those nights, many nights, I walked away with 3 DUI arrests in one shift. So yeah, it's pretty crazy out there. So if you're good and active. So pay attention to the road. Driver distractions. Is that a problem, you think, amongst drivers, CMVs and small cars, Keith? What do you think about that? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
I'm guilty of this one.
It happens, and I catch myself, like, I think sometimes you just get caught in the mundane, and I will look down at that pesky darn phone, and
Yep.
I always remember, because I teach that safer defensive driving, and I always make the point that when I'm teaching the class, my phone is somewhere else, and when I get to this point, I always walk over and I pick it up, and I ask them, I was like, why is it that I don't have this in my back pocket when I'm talking to you? And it's because they're like, because it's a distraction. I was like, yeah, it is. And I just flip at the screen, and I'm like, 60 notifications. And I says, it's only been sitting there for an hour. I said, it is a distraction. Remove the distraction. Look, the easiest way is put it out of sight, out of mind. They got that do not disturb function, which I have convinced myself not to use it, because I'm always convinced that there may be an emergency, that somebody in my life or somebody around may need to actually get a hold of me. So for me, it's a discipline. It's don't touch it, leave it down, that kind of thing. But it is, you gotta stay focused on that one all the time. So,
Yeah, and I think we're all guilty of it.
yeah, but it's not just the phone. It's all the distractions, right? It's talking, it's conversations, it's playing with the radio, fiddling with these new digitized, systems in the trucks and the vehicles.
Yeah.
There's just so many distractions there. There's so many buttons on my screen when I need to change the screen of the radio. I have to stare at, you hit a bump, and you got to sit there and focus. And that's a distraction too. So yeah, definitely. So,
Yeah, and then you want to obey the speed limits. I just had this conversation with my grandson.
Yeah.
Trying to get somewhere and running 10, 15 miles an hour over the speed limit versus just driving the speed limit and getting there, it probably makes all of a minute or two difference.
Less than that.
Less.
It does.
It's about 5 seconds.
It
it's
does.
like just slow.
And it's fun to hear old Redbird chime in on that one, because I would say this is something that he is very, very good at. He does have a speeding ticket. It happened while working, actually, for one of my clients, driving a vehicle in Wyoming, and it was a big vehicle. And I'm pretty sure he vowed at that point that he's never going to ever let that happen again. Yep. So, yeah, Mr.
Well, and especially at your age, your insurance goes up, and that sucks.
Insanely bad.
Yeah.
He did get a little bit of a deduction getting married here in 2025, and he hits the big 25 this year in 2026. So yeah, 25. That's a big day. So I remember the birthdays you wait for, right? You're waiting for 16, and you're waiting for 18, and then 21, and then 25, and then after that it's like, whoa,
doesn't matter anymore.
Slow down. Yeah, 25 is gonna drop you.
I collected plenty of speeding tickets with a '67 Firebird in high school.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah. What about never drive drowsy? Never driving drowsy. Sleeping is so necessary in so many lives, and it amazes me, especially talking to my companies that I deal with and go do training. I always ask the groups, how many of you guys sleep for 8 hours a night? And I see who raises their hand, and I get down to 4. And the majority of the class raises. And those are usually commercial motor vehicle drivers. And I'm like, I guess when your circadian rhythm, when you have trained your body to operate on that much sleep, you're probably okay. But the only problem is you got no leeway. With 4 hours, if you disrupt that 4 hours, your body's going to go into meltdown because it's already sleep deprived. So what's the only cure for fatigue, Redbeard?
Take a nap.
Take a nap. So I've got a lot of people in this industry that we work with that think cocaine and meth is that. So I'm like, it does not cure fatigue.
I don't see a problem with that.
It'll cure your life. We're going to bring it into it unnecessarily, or somebody else's. But yeah. Coffee. Is coffee a cure for fatigue? And I always tell everybody, it doesn't cure it, but it sure helps. Because I wake up every morning and I walk to that coffee pot as I stumble to it, and I just try to breathe that caffeinated air while it's brewing. And I just have convinced myself that it's going to get into my bloodstream a little faster if I'm hovering over it, breathing it. So anyway, drowsy. The only cure for fatigue is some good sleep. So if you're tired out there, pull over somewhere safe. If you need a parking lot, you get a nice lit parking lot somewhere where you can be safe, that kind of thing. Do not stop on the shoulders of the road for naps. That is the dead zone. You're going to get hit and killed out there. So try to get out of the traffic, get into a place where you can just catch a 10-minute power nap. That'll help you. Drivers, of course, adhere to your DOT rules for your resting requirements. Try to get restorative sleep during that time.
Share the road responsibly.
Share
So what do you
the
mean
road.
by that?
Well, I think that means like give the right of way when you need to. Don't be a pig out there on the road. It could also kind of take that toward last week's podcast about talking about truck stop etiquette and stuff like that. This is like driving etiquette. That's kind of the way I take that. Be mindful of the others. The road. Truck drivers. Truck drivers are pretty used to the fact that people don't know how much space we need between the vehicles. So, and that kind of thing. So just be mindful of others, drive safe. When in doubt, give the right of way. Oh, and roundabouts. Pay attention to the signs going into the dang roundabouts, people. I mean, come on. Usually the lanes are marked. There's usually painted dots, and if the painted dots don't show a break that you can cross over, that usually means you're in a through lane. Right over here by what is it? Where the Thunder Mountain, the Harley dealership is, that roundabout. So many people that are heading west, they're in that outside lane, and they just cut across right in front of the other lane. And that other lane, the inside lane, actually extends to the outside lane in that roundabout to give room for those that want to circle it. And I mean, 2 or 3 times a week, I have somebody cut me off in there. So I am trying to be mindful of the other drivers by not just taking them out. It's very frustrating. Yeah. So pay attention to the signs. They're clearly marked. Learn your roundabouts. So
if you ever want something fun to do, just stand there and watch that roundabout out in front of Shields.
Oh yeah, that one. People get pissed in that roundabout, man. Like, yeah.
I think there's just something in that area because I live right over there, and there's 2 4-way stops right there. It'd blow your mind watching people go through this 4-way stop. Like, people just don't know how they work. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, pretty crazy. All right, well then, how about paying attention to flashing lights? I have to look at the notes on this to see what flashing lights. Are we talking about vehicles? Are we talking about highway lights? We got that massive windstorm last week, and they said they were going to shut everything down. And the highway signs was reminding everybody, hey, remember, when the intersection goes black, treat it like a 4-way. Yeah. So, definitely pay attention to your flashing lights, on the roadway. But one thing I'm going to say is, like, I understand when you're coming up to stopped traffic and you kick your hazards on to let those behind you that are rapidly approaching, to let them know, hey, we got a problem up here. It stopped, there's traffic delay. But once you get to the backfill behind you, shut your flashers off. Okay, we don't need to be constantly reminded that we're all driving 2 to 3 miles per hour. And at nighttime, that flash is very constantly annoying. So just shut the flashers off once you've alerted everybody behind you. I'll take that one, pass that down. Truck drivers are usually pretty good about hitting their hazards when they need to, but definitely pay it down to them. Secondly, I will say this: under state law, with your flashers on, you're not supposed to be out on the roadway driving over 25 mile an hour. So correct. I always wonder when you see that guy doing 80 with his hazards on, like, obviously he's got an emergency. I don't know. That is not the proper use of those. So
he could be a teen driver.
Oh, teen drivers. Yeah, talk to your teen drivers. I raced 2 of those, and I think my kids will tell you that I was a very strict driving instructor. I think they'll use some language that something like starts with an N, like a Nazi driving instructor. I would prefer the term drill instructor, but kids are going to be kids. And I was very strict with my teen drivers. When I was teaching, especially my daughter to drive, she was driving straight, and I was drilling her in her ear driving, and she was crying and driving. And some would say that's probably cruel and unusual punishment. And I said, hey, she needs to know how to drive with distractions, plain and simple. Mm-hmm. So and she was, Natalie, if you're listening to this, you were so terrible behind the wheel.
To be fair, we almost died a couple times.
A couple?
I mean, like 6 or 7 times.
It's okay because. Should we talk about driving a boat?
No. We're not talking that.
Ryan almost killed my grandson and Natalie.
Oh, yeah. I made a bad decision that day.
Mrs. Couch about killed Ryan.
Yeah. Ryan has nightmares about that incident. That one fleeting moment that I'm like, look, I know you're not supposed to do this, but it'll be fine. And it did not end fine.
It involved the tube, the boat.
Yeah.
And Ryan's
And another
daughter
boat.
and my grandson.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, at a very high speed. Yeah.
bounced off the side of my boat.
That one leaves me with little PTSD because that at that very moment, time slowed down, and I watched your grandson and my daughter. That leaves me with some PTSD. That's one that haunts me.
All turned out well.
I thought
It
was
did,
pretty damn
it did,
funny.
and it was a lesson learned. And
Yeah.
I hate that moment. But yeah, talk to your teen drivers or talk to your dads when they're driving a boat and say, "Don't do stupid stuff."
Yeah.
It just takes 1 second and one split decision to change the life forever. I got lucky on that one, but yeah, crazy. All right, check on your recalls. Stay up with your maintenance on your vehicles, that type of thing. Make sure that they're good and safe out there on the roadway. Preventative maintenance goes a long ways, both in the commercial world and the private world. I, as a trooper, I used to love stopping vehicles, and I'd do inspections. In the old days, back in the state patrol, they did regular vehicle inspections. I found the forms and everything else. They even have laws that you can write for them, but the state, they don't do those vehicle inspections. So when I was working, if I saw a jalopy driving down the road and I'm at like bad shape, I'd pull that thing over and I'd have it towed for unsafe conditions. So, so that's pretty much it. Those are our topics for the drive safety, be a little bit safer out there. All right, truck around and find out topic of the day, the fun one. We've been kind of running long probably on this guy today.
And I'll just, before we get to your story, I'll just say, the check for recalls or whatever and being safer. We used to live in Montana, and my stepson, Daniel, he had to drive 65 miles one way for baseball practice. And I had a Mazda pickup at the time. And one thing I've learned from my dad and his dad and my uncle is you never run used tires, or buy used tires. You always run good tires on your vehicles and everything like that. So this is back when Montana had unlimited speed limit, or there was no speed limit. And Daniel got pulled over for speeding on, I think it's I-15 up there from Conrad north to Shelby. And then he would go west to Cutbank, Montana for baseball practice. And we knew the state trooper because he was also a volunteer umpire for baseball, Legion A baseball. And so I asked him he said, he pulled Daniel over. He said he was very respectful, did everything I asked him to do. And I said, well, with no speed limit, what do you check? He said, the first thing we look at is your tires. That's number one. He said, if you don't have good tires, you're getting a ticket.
Well, they do keep you on the roadway. Yeah, those tires.
Just an interesting tidbit that I thought I'd throw out. It's not really a TAFO moment, but it's interesting.
It's very, very important.
Yeah.
And you see the tires, when you see the internal workings of the tires, the belt, the ply, the metal, that is not traction. That is that's going to just skid and skid and skid. There's no traction.
Yeah.
So you got to have that tread. I think the state of Colorado, which maybe next podcast we'll talk about some of the chain loss stuff, about the axles, how many need to be chained, because there was some updates here early 2025. But they say for the passenger vehicles that you got to have at least 330 seconds tread depth in order for that to be accepted up there in those mountain highways. So definitely.
So tell us about your TAFO.
Yeah, I had to truck around and find out situation yesterday as I had to head down and meet with Nicole, and we had that snowstorm came in. It was a little bit of ice on the road, and it was kind of I-25. We're in one of those areas where it's 3 lanes across going south, and I was in the middle. I was doing probably about 74, 75, because it was clear. It was just a little bit wet, but that fast lane on the inside, that hammer lane on the number 3 lane was completely iced over, still frozen. Nobody was driving in it. And as I was coming down, I think I was about by Erie, I noticed there's a big white semi with a big van body enclosed trailer behind him, and he's coming fast. And I mean, I'm doing right about 75, and I mean, he is coming up on us all really, really quick. And I mean, he's just blowing snow across the road and everything else. And I was like, this knucklehead, like, what in the heck is he doing? And so I got geared up. I reached down, and we just talked about phone distractions. I reached down, just tapped that camera button, and I was watching in the mirror, watching straight, and I had it ready so I could see if I could snap that door as he was going by, see if I could pick up that company name, because he and I, or his safety manager and I, were definitely going to be having a conversation after he blew my door off. And he came up on my truck, so I drive that black TRX, and he came up on that, got just the front of that cab, or the front of that grill, got just behind the driver's door, and he just all of a sudden slowed down, and he kind of backed down to my rear quarter panel there, and he just kind of rode there real slow. And then as I was still going forward, I noticed he dropped back about 4 car lengths behind me and fell in behind me on that road. And I'm assuming it was either one of my clients and they recognized the truck, or it was a driver and recognized the license plate that says DOT guy on the back of that, and he finally had a realization he shouldn't be driving in that. So he was about ready to truck around and find out, because I don't know what, I didn't get the company. He slowed down, I let it go. But if I could have figured out who that was when he went past me, my next phone call was somebody's going to be getting an earful from me. So yeah, absolutely out of control. So hey, slow down. You know what? As we said earlier, it's just not going to pay to drive that fast. You're risking your life, you're risking your livelihood, and you know what? You're putting everybody at risk on the roadway when you're driving that way. So slow her down. With that being said, Keith, you got anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Perfect. Well, appreciate all of you. Thank you for what you do, moving America forward and getting our products to us left and right. Keep our shiny side up. Stay safe out there on the roadway, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
God bless you guys.